Villagers cut off the ropes, opening up the sluice, and the lake flowed into another area, leaving the beast exposed. As they prepared to slay it, the beast began roaring, but Tahamaru charged at it with his men, and dodged its claw before splitting its leg. As Hyogo sliced another, Mutsu fired arrows at it, and eventually nailed its head, weakening the monster. At this realization, the villagers began cheering, and Tahamaru sliced its body, so they began throwing stones at the beast. However, as Tahamaru tried to end it, the crab threw a rock at the gate, and he realized they were about to lose their advantage. So he directed the men to protect the gate, but the beast threw another rock that caused the water to start gushing. Determined to fight anyway, Tahamaru stabbed his sword into the ground, but the water carried away the villagers. Luckily, Hyogo managed to save them before they were eaten, and threw one of them to the island, before tossing the others. With the monster nearly devouring him, Tahamaru tried going for his rescue, but Hyakimaru rushed out of nowhere, and slayed the monster instantly before he slashed it. As Tahamaru wondered who killed it first, his men arrived, and pulled him onto their boat. Just as they rowed away, he noticed Hyakimaru, and wondered just how powerful he must be to slay the monster. Later on the island, Tahamaru demanded to know who Hyakimaru was, but Dororo told him to be grateful that they managed to save their asses, so he thanked him, but wondered why Hyakimaru was only staring at him. Dororo told him that he was blind, and said that he could only see with his soul, but she demanded their broke asses pay up for saving them, so Tahamaru gave her some silver coins. As Dororo wondered how they could find the nearby village they've been looking for, Tahamaru pointed towards his village. However, as they began heading towards the village, Hyakimaru remembered his soul, and wondered if he had ever met him before. Inside the village, as a seer noticed them, she began screaming that the demon child has arrived to destroy them all, before running away. At the same time, Dororo realized the town was very peaceful, and noticed that everyone was happy. At that moment, he saw Muni in the crowd, and wondered how he managed to find this village. A few minutes later, as they sat at a stream, Muni revealed that the statue of the demons were inside Dago's temple, and noticed that Hyakimaru's soul was tainted with the presence of demons, so he realized that he had been killing humans. As he began to leave, he warned Dororo to be careful, realizing the demon inside him may completely take over him. Meanwhile at Dago's palace, Mutsu told him that they were saved by a mysterious man in prostheses, and said that he travels across villages looking for demons to slay. Just as he revealed his name, Mina realized he was actually their son, and was overwhelmed by the discovery. On the other hand, Dororo and Hyakimaru began leaving the village, hoping to find the monster that was terrorizing the villagers. As they noticed the tall wall before them, Hyakimaru sensed the presence of a demon around it, and said that it was really powerful. Just then, a boy appeared before them, nearly scaring the shit out of Dororo, and began saying that they would be killed if they tried to cross to the other side. As they noticed the Asakura soldiers, a neighboring clan who were at war with the Ishikawa clan, the boy revealed that they would shoot them once they tried to cross over to their land. However, Dororo was determined not to leave, and told him that they came to slay Bandman, the powerful monster that was terrorizing the area. Later that day, as the boy, Sukuroku, began to make soup, he revealed that this site used to be his home before the wall was built. They had stopped him from returning home, and said that the territory now belongs to the Asakura clan. However, he was bent on crossing to the other side, and said that he intends to reunite with his family. So Dororo offered to help him, and said that they would sneak him in at night. But he told him that demons always surround the area, and would devour everyone in sight. Even so, Dororo was not afraid, and said that her demon-slaying buddy would take care of the monster. At Dago's palace, Mina wondered where he was heading to, afraid that he intends to kill Hyakimaru to save his worthless village. She told him that he was being punished for sacrificing his own son 16 years ago, but Dago thought none of it matters, and decided to leave anyway. That night, as the Asakura soldiers left their post, the boys began hearing noises from the monsters. Before their eyes, a flaming demon descended from the sky, and they thought it was a fox. Sukuroku revealed that it was the Bandman monster that was terrorizing everyone in the area. And at that moment, over a dozen flames appeared before them, and transformed into foxes. As a demon jumped at Hyakimaru, he slashed it at once, and began slashing the other demons. However, the lead fox summoned the others, and more spirits appeared in the sky, flying towards Hyakimaru at the same time. As he slashed them, another demon bruised his face, so Dororo began throwing rocks from the side, causing them to vanish, and Hyakimaru slayed more of them. Realizing his opportunity, Sukuroku began running to the other side, but Dororo thought it was too dangerous. As he tried pursuing him, a demon narrowly missed him, but as it returned to devour him, Hyakimaru rushed in and killed it instantly. So Dororo hurried away, and the demons merged into a 10-tailed fox. As he dodged fireballs, the fox managed to pin him to the ground. Just as it tried to devour him, he kicked it away and slashed it, before a bunch of arrows scared it off, causing it to disappear. Inside the village, Tahamaru began looking for Hyakimaru, thinking he would help him to discover his family's secret, but noticed the seer. As she spotted him, she began to freak out like a useless nutcase, saying that the demon child has returned to slay Dago. As he demanded to know what she meant, she told him that it was the curse of demons, and that the cursed child has returned to curse Dago and the village. At the same time, Dororo was screaming for Sukuroku in the forest, but soon realized that he has been captured by the soldiers. At the wall, Hayakimaru realized that an army was before him, and sensed the power of the demons inside Daigo's soul. As he asked who he was, one of the men began calling him a useless moron for speaking directly to Daigo. In an instant, Hayakimaru knocked their torches and flashed to feel Daigo's soul. As Daigo realized that he was truly his cursed son, he tried to strike him, but he jumped away immediately. As he wondered how he managed to survive on his own, he called him a half-born demon child, and commanded his men to eliminate him. So they launched arrows immediately, but he escaped to the other side, and the men pursued him. Inside the forest, as he hid on a tree, he wondered what Daigo's words meant, and realized he must see him again. On the other hand, as Dororo woke up inside a cell, she realized that she was now a prisoner for the Asakura clan. As she noticed Sukuroku, she wondered if he found his village, but he told her that his home has been destroyed, and that even his family were all probably dead. Hoping to inspire him, Dororo began telling him that they could travel around the world together, but a prisoner said that they would be safer if they could escape to Daigo's territory. He said that the goddess of mercy was protecting their land, and that the demon was keeping the Asakura clan from going beyond the Banman wall. At that moment, Dororo noticed his crest, and realized that Hayakimaru has the same symbol on his pouch, so the man revealed that it was the crest of Daigo's clan. Just then, she noticed the opening inside the cell, and thought it would probably lead them outside. However, when she suggested that they escape together, Sukuroku told her that he was too afraid, and the prisoner said they could never escape. Even so, Dororo was determined to survive, and promised to return for Sukuroku's rescue. So she began climbing up the rocks, but a guard spotted her and immediately called for backup. However, as one of the guards tried to fire an arrow at her, Sukuroku managed to stop him, and the arrows lost their aim as he screamed at her to escape. As she made it outside, she slipped down the rocks and fell into a stream. Meanwhile, at Daigo's palace, Tahamaru arrived home and demanded to know why Mina and his father fed Hayakimaru to the demons. But the memory of it broke her heart, as Tahamaru said that she was useless for abandoning her own son. Daigo appeared at that moment, saying that it was the only way to save their village from the wars and famine that destroyed his people. Just then, they were warned about an intruder and discovered that he was Hayakimaru. As he noticed their souls, he realized they were probably his family and managed to block the soldiers' arrows. However, as they launched new arrows, he began running away, and Daigo commanded his men to kill him. Hearing his words, Tahamaru tried saying that Hayakimaru should be spared, seeing as he was his brother. But Daigo told him to get his empty brains out of his ass and said that Hayakimaru's survival would destroy their entire village. Inside the forest, Hayakimaru noticed Dororo as she came out of the bushes, and she told him that Sukuroku would soon be executed. At the same time, an Asakura soldier told the prisoners that they have declared war on the Ishikawa clan, as they thought the demon protecting their territory has been driven away, and said that executing them would be their declaration of war. At the village, Tahamaru and his men began making their way to the temple, and as they arrived, they noticed all the broken statues and realized that their seal with the demons would be destroyed soon. At that moment, a powerful wind began blowing them and eventually pushed them outside the temple. This triggered Tahamaru to take sides with the demons, as he realized that saving his village was the most important thing to him. Inside the forest, as Dororo discovered that Hayakimaru's family were the lords of the village, she began saying that they would be offered a VIP treat once they visit the palace, and Hayakimaru was hoping to see his mother again. At the Banman wall, the Asakura soldiers launched arrows to eliminate the prisoners, but Sukuroku managed to survive. Immediately, the Ishikawa soldiers charged at them, and Dororo spotted the battle from the forest. Before they knew it, spirit flames began appearing, so Hayakimaru began slashing them as he rushed towards the battle. On the battlefield, a demon devoured a soldier, so the Asakura clan began running off, realizing they could not win the war. Just then, the Ishikawa soldiers spotted Hayakimaru, and Daigo told his men that he was the demon threatening their village. As Hayakimaru noticed one of the soldiers who slayed Mio and the orphans, he grew angry at the memory, and was ready to annihilate them all. However, Dororo managed to hold him back, and eventually calmed him. Right then, Tahamaru arrived, and told him that he was his younger brother, and that their father really offered him as a sacrifice for the village. However, he thought it was the right thing to do, and said that breaking the seal with the demons would ruin their village. To stop this from happening, he said Hayakimaru was now a demon in their land, and must be annihilated immediately. So he drew his sword, and decided to attack him. But Dororo thought this must be a very bad dream, and hurried to rescue Sukuroku. At the same time, the brothers began clashing swords, but as Dororo tried freeing the boy, they realized that the spirit foxes were returning, so she tried biting off the ropes. As the spirits merged into a 10-tailed fox, Sukuroku tried telling Dororo to run away, but she screamed for Hayakimaru's help. Immediately, he sliced Tahamaru's face, and running towards the demon, he slashed it over 1,000 times until it smashed onto the wall. At that moment, Mina arrived, revealing the broken statue of the goddess of mercy. As she began asking for Hayakimaru's forgiveness, she told him that she could not save him, and said that the entire village depends on his devoured body parts. However, she thought she could offer herself up instead, and isekai'd herself before they knew it. At that moment, a glowing light appeared on the wall, and as it began to crumble, they all ran away from the site. Later at the crash site, Dororo wondered where they would go next, but Sukuroku's family appeared on the mountains, and he discovered they were still alive after all. So having no more business in the village, the companions began to leave, hoping to never return. However, as the weeks passed, Hyakkimaru continued to remember his mother and couldn't even sleep at night. When Dororo asked what he was worried about, he told her that he wants to kill every single demon in the world, and began to leave, so she ran after him. On the road, as she tried telling him to get some rest, thinking he's probably been pushing himself too hard, he bumped into her and continued walking away. A few days later, as they crossed a bridge towards another village, Dororo told Hyakkimaru that there's a hot spring nearby, and suggested that they soak in it. However, when she realized that Hyakkimaru was only determined to hunt for monsters, she screamed that a monster was spotted close to the spring, successfully bringing him to a halt. Meanwhile in Dago's village, it had begun to rain again, and Dago was relieved that the war was cancelled, but Mina was yet to regain consciousness. However, with the rain having returned, he thought it was a sign that the demons have not broken their seal, but wondered how much longer they would continue to back him up, seeing as Hyakkimaru would not stop until they were all dead. Before long, they soaked in the water, and soon realized that even Muni was here, so he told them that they were probably destined to meet wherever they go. The following day, Dororo noticed a map that was carved on her back, and Muni said it was probably only obvious when her body was warmed up. Dororo remembered that her mother once revealed half of the map to her, and said that the map would lead her to her father's treasure. She had told her that she would figure out how to find it once she found someone she could trust, but Dororo never understood what her words meant, and revealed that she totally forgot about the treasure. Realizing her options, Muni decided to ask what she would do once Hyakkimaru successfully reclaims all his body parts. He thought the treasure would come in handy, and said that she could even create her own territory, and could live a happy life forever. However, he thought Hyakkimaru would probably not be in support of this, and wondered if reclaiming all his body parts would make him happy forever. Later that day, as they arrived at the forest, they noticed an ugly ghost, and Dororo hid herself away. However, Hyakkimaru thought they weren't demons, and one of the ghosts vanished before their eyes. At that moment, the huge ghost began approaching Dororo, asking for a motherly hug. But the girl was terrified at the sight of it, and it fell on top of her, nearly crushing her. As she tried screaming for Hyakkimaru's help, he merely ignored her, saying that it was not a demon. So the ghost began following them, holding Dororo like its own baby, and before long, they arrived at a ruined temple, so the ugly ghost directed Hyakkimaru to a spot. As he checked the sand, he discovered it was oil, and Dororo said that the oil was probably burned down. At that moment, the big ghost held Dororo once again, calling her mother, but the poor girl was only desperate to go far away from it. Just then, it vanished, and a strange man appeared before them. He told them that the forest was haunted at night, and said that it was very dangerous for travelers. As he paid his last respects to the dead, he invited them to his home for the dinner, saying that he has no desire to see them become ghost meat. However, Dororo thought his eyes were creepy, and hid herself away. As the man introduced himself as Sabame, saying that he was the lord of the land, Hyakkimaru noticed a demon aura around his soul, but they decided to follow him anyway. When they arrived at his home, they realized that it was deep inside the forest, but a group of dancers welcomed them with a performance, and Dororo consumed her meal like she's not eaten in days. She thought Sabame was probably a kind man to offer them so much food, so the Lord told her that he welcomes every single traveler he comes across. Realizing her opportunity, Dororo decided to ask how the temple was burned down in the first place, but the dancers stopped at that moment, and all the ladies withdrew from the room. Dororo thought this was strange, but Sabame decided to reveal the story. A few years ago, a nun took care of orphans at the temple, but soon began to enslave them like animals, and forced them to work on the farms, before selling them off to distant villages. However, one day, a lightning struck the temple, and set it ablaze with everyone inside. When Hyakkimaru wondered whose ghost was moving around the forest, the Lord told them that it was the spirit of the nun. Due to her sins, she was locked out of heaven, and he said she was always looking for new travelers to devour. However, that night, as they prepared to sleep, Dororo wondered if Sabame's story was really true, but Hyakkimaru said it probably wasn't. Dororo said that the spilled oil on the sand proved that the temple was intentionally burned, and wondered if a demon would attack them to keep the secret safe. As they slept that night, a monster appeared on the wood, and Dororo realized they were about to be eaten, so she tried waking Hyakkimaru, but discovered that he was deeply asleep. However, when the monster tried to devour them, he sliced off its arms, and it fell to the floor. As he tried to slay it, the beast spat silk at him, trapping his arms, but he broke it, and sliced it before it could escape. Desperate to survive, the monster spat another silk, but he went through it, and stabbed it deep in the belly. However, just as they thought it was dead, it began screaming, and the doors were blown open. Right then, a new monster descended before them, and Hyakkimaru realized that it was a demon, but it cast a strange dust to distract them, and carried away the beast. With peace restored, Dororo noticed that the dust was not harmful, but Hyakkimaru suggested that she washes it off anyway. Outside the village, the demon transformed into a lady and told Sabame that they couldn't devour the guests, as one of them was the cursed child. She revealed that he has come to reclaim his body parts, but Sabame promised to protect her and the other monsters. The following day as they had breakfast, Sabame told Dororo and Hyakkimaru to extend their stay in the village, saying that they would be safe here. Before long, Dororo arrived inside the village, and realized that all the villagers were very happy. Just then, a family invited her over, and a kid gave her a rice cake, so the granny told her that they owe their lives to Sabame. As Dororo tried asking what really happened at the temple, the granny decided to leave, and she realized that the farmers were staring at her like a creep. At the same time, Hyakkimaru began trailing Sabame into the forest, and even followed him as far as he went. However, as he arrived at an open space, he realized that Sabame had intentionally lured him here, and he told him that he comes to this spot to have a view of the village. On the other hand, Dororo managed to find the storehouse, but wondered why it was built so far away from the village. She thought it was definitely strange, and wondered why the villagers were acting like a bunch of creeps. So she decided to look inside, but realized that the storehouse was filled with rice. She thought they were all probably hardworking people, and decided to leave, but stumbled on the floorboard. At that moment, she discovered that it was actually a hidden trapdoor, and decided to open it. Before she knew it, a villager kicked her inside, saying that she deserves to be devoured for being too nosy, and that they were only trying to protect their village. At the same time, Sabame began telling Hyakkimaru that the village was his only home, and that he would protect it from every threat. He said that even the monsters were his people, and that he would protect them until his last breath, so he decided to tell him the story of his village. 16 years ago, his village was raided by samurai who escaped from the war, and turned the place into a wasteland. It was at that time that a powerful demon appeared before him, and offered to protect them in exchange for continued dinner. So as he accepted their offer, they began devouring the samurai, and eventually brought peace into the village. He wondered what Hyakkimaru's true purpose was, and decided to ask him why he was bent on killing the demons. So Hyakkimaru told him that he wants to reclaim every single one of his body parts. Inside the underground, Dororo tried screaming for help, but realized that she was basically hopeless of ever being found. As she wondered how she could tell Hyakkimaru that she was trapped, several monsters appeared in the darkness, and she began running away for her life. Just then, a silk caught her ankle, and tripped her on the sand. She tried pulling herself up, but noticed the bones before her, and the big ghost appeared before her eyes, stopping the monsters immediately. As Dororo wondered where it came from, the ghost tried telling the monsters to withdraw. However, when they tried devouring her anyway, baby ghosts burst outside and managed to send the monsters away. As one little ghost returned, she revealed the true story to Dororo, and she realized that Sabame actually slayed the nun before feeding the kids to the monsters. This realization made her sad, and she wondered why the villagers could be so terrible. But the baby ghosts offered to lead her outside. Inside the forest, as the beast awakened, Sabame revealed that Hyakkimaru would be its lunch, and it appeared before his eyes. As the demons cast weird dust, Hyakkimaru decided to hold his breath. At that moment, he realized that Sabame was just like Dago, and would sacrifice anyone for his own good, so he slashed at the monsters, knocking one to the ground and splitting another's wing. As Sabame tried checking the beast, Hyakkimaru kicked him away, sending him tumbling down the hill, before stabbing the demon. However, it managed to fly away, and even pierced him with a claw, but he managed to free himself, and crashed into the forests. With the beast growing angry, it crashed into a tower, setting it ablaze, and shortly, even the entire village was on fire. That evening, as Dororo found Hyakkimaru in the forest, he decided to reveal the entire truth to him, and they soon realized that the village was burning. At the same time, the villagers watched their storehouse burn, and they realized that all of their food was gone with the flames. As they wondered how they would survive, they began fighting over the leftover rice, and Sabame realized that everything they've worked for was already destroyed. With his job done, Hyakkimaru tried leaving, but his prosthetic leg limb shattered instantly. However, that night, he decided to hunt down the last of the demons. As he arrived at the center of the lake, the monster emerged from the water and carried him away, but he blasted a flame at its wings, burning it in an instant, before falling into the water. Just as he returned to shore, another statue broke, and little pieces of wood fell out of his back, allowing a real spinal cord to grow in its place. At dawn, as they began leaving the village, Dororo noticed the destruction, and realized that the villagers were all sad, so she began to wonder if they were truly doing the right thing. But Hyakkimaru couldn't care less about them. As she remembered Muni's words, she wondered if killing all the demons would change anything in the world, but Hyakkimaru could only think of slaying the next one. However, as he tried to check for Dororo, he realized that she was no longer by his side. Meanwhile, Dororo decided to take a different path, realizing that Hyakkimaru would continue ignoring her forever. Just then, a group of mercenaries arrived, and she discovered that their leader was Itachi, the uncle that lured her village into their death. He told her that he's been looking for her, and demanded for the other half of her father's map. As she wondered how he managed to discover it in the first place, he told her that he was spying on her father when he was alive, and commanded his men to glance at her back. However, before they got close, she decided to reveal it, and they realized that there was no drawings on her. Even so, Itachi wasn't buying this, and said that she has probably memorized it or something, so he ordered his men to capture her. Before long, they started riding away, and Dororo was tied to the horse. As they rode through the forest all day, Dororo wondered where they were heading to, so Itachi told her that he was going in search for her father's treasure, and revealed that he noticed him sneaking through the camp a few years ago. At the time, he suspected that he was probably hiding half of their loot for himself, and even tried spying on him. But he never discovered anything, and eventually gave up. However, he was now desperate for money, and decided to look for the treasure once again. After all, he had nothing more to lose. Luckily, he came across her mother's burial site, and managed to discover the map after digging her up. Hearing these words, Dororo grew angry, and tried charging at him, but she fell after being restrained by the rope. The following day, they continued riding up the mountain, and soon arrived on a cliff. As Itachi noticed the island before them, he thought it was definitely the X spot, and decided to cut Dororo loose. He told her that he would give her half of the treasure if she helped him find it, but she knew that his worthless face was worse than his lies. Realizing they needed a boat to cross the sea, they decided to visit the nearby village. However, they discovered it was a total wreck, and thought it must have been attacked by bandits. Before long, they arrived on the shore, but realized that the boats had been wrecked. Just then, an ugly weirdo appeared before them, offering to give them a ride on his boat. However, Itachi thought he was far too creepy, and wondered why the village was empty. The weirdo, Asura, told them that all the villagers have been slain by bandits, and Dororo thought he was probably lying, and tried telling Itachi to find a new solution, but he told her that this was their only choice. Just as they got on the boats, two sharks began pulling them towards the island, and the men were afraid for their lives. Asura told them that the sharks are his family, but Itachi thought he was definitely out of his mind. As Dororo wondered how he lost his arm, he revealed that he fed it to the sharks when they were hungry, and eventually fed them with every single villager. At that moment, Itachi realized that they were being pulled to an opposite island, and threatened to slay him on the spot. Just then, Asura summoned the sharks, and commanded them to devour the mercenaries. Before they knew it, one of the sharks pulled down a boat, and they began devouring the men like a large chunk of meat. As Itachi tried to end him, a shark scratched his arm, allowing the weirdo to leave unscathed. He told the sharks to leave the rest of the men for their dinner, and began moving towards the shore. A few hours later, as one of the men tried paddling away, a shark emerged and devoured the wood, making the men realize they were entirely hopeless. However, Dororo would not give up, and began telling them to wake the f*** up, because no one would remember their worthless lives if they died here. When the men began to wonder how they would escape, Dororo offered to lure the shark to the surface, so that they would kill it immediately. Before they knew it, she jumped into the water and swam deep inside. As she narrowly dodged the shark, she yanked the rope, so they began pulling her towards the surface. As the shark tried devouring her, she caught its face, successfully luring it out of the water, and the men stabbed it at the same time, killing the shark immediately. Realizing Asura would soon return, Itachi commanded his men to sail towards the island. So at dusk, as Asura arrived, he discovered that his shark has been slain, and hurried to the island. Just then, the men appeared before him, having lured him into the trap, and soon beat him to a pulp. When it was morning, the men began marching to the top of the hill, continuing their search for the treasure, and Dororo realized it may all be over for her. At that moment, Asura regained consciousness, and commanded his shark to devour all the men. Meanwhile, on a battlefield, Kyujai continued fitting prostheses on bodies, determined to fulfill the promise he made. As a thief stole one of the prosthetic eyes, a demon devoured him immediately, and knocked Kyujai to the ground. Thinking he was dead, it jumped on an old man, and ate him out at that moment, but Hyakimaru slayed it out of nowhere. At the sight of him, Kyujai realized he was changed, and thought his abilities were terrifying. As they sat in the cave, he began to wonder how Hyakimaru managed to reclaim his body parts, and even learned to speak. However, Hyakimaru's only concern was getting a new prosthetic leg, and he told Kyujai to help him fix another one. Unwilling to do so, Kyujai tried serving him dinner, but Hyakimaru told him that his only desire was to get a new leg. However, Kyujai decided to serve him dinner anyway, and noticed his pouch as it fell, so he wondered if Hyakimaru has met his family. As Hyakimaru revealed who his father was, he told him that he fed him off to demons, and decided to tell him every single thing that happened. Meanwhile, in Dago's village, Mina finally regained consciousness. However, when the housekeeper told Tahamaru, he merely ignored her, and began riding out of the village with his men. At the same time in the cave, Kyujai learned about the entire story, and realized that the existence of Dago's great village depends on Hyakimaru's life. So Hyakimaru told him once more that he wants the new leg. However, Kyujai told him that he wouldn't fit him into another, as he was afraid that he would continue killing the demons, and eventually destroy Dago's village. He said that with every demon he kills, he was losing more of his humanity, and thought he would eventually become a demon. He said that a new prosthetic leg would only speed up the process, and decided to ruin it, saying that he could not save him. At that moment, Hyakimaru remembered that his mother had said the exact same words, and a landslide sealed the entrance of the cave. At Dago's palace, Mina began telling him that Hyakimaru managed to survive the demon sacrifice, because the goddess of mercy offered her head in exchange for his own. This was the only logical explanation, seeing as his head should have been devoured by the last demon. However, with the goddess of mercy now destroyed, Mina thought Dago's contract with the demons was now broken, and told him that their village would soon be destroyed. Even so, Dago thought she was overthinking it, and told her that the village would continue to be safe. However, as he arrived outside, his spy told him that Dororo was spotted on an island, and he thought that Hyakimaru was definitely with her, so Dago commanded that Tahamaru finds him immediately. Meanwhile, Tahamaru and his men arrived at an abandoned home, having learned that a demon was killing the villagers, and Tahamaru thought it was his duty to slay it. As he entered the house, they noticed a rat on the wood, and the monster rat flew at them, but Tahamaru cast it aside. They realized it was a demon, and Hyogo tried to squash it, but it nipped him and evaded Matsu's arrows before Tahamaru sliced its limb. In the cave, Hyakimaru began digging a new way out, and as Kyujai noticed his determination to slay more demons, he wondered why Hyakimaru was so eager to resume his hunt for them, so he told him that he must reclaim every part of his body. Just then, he punctured the wall, and discovered he could see outside. Meanwhile, in the demon-infested house, Matsu decided to spy on the demon, and realized that it has over 1,000 babies. Looking to end it, he aimed his arrow at the monsters, but the beast charged at him, so Tahamaru slashed another limb out of nowhere. As Hyogo tried to end it, the beast escaped, but Matsu pinned it to the floor. With the demon captured, Tahamaru suggested that they burn down the house, saying that it was the only way to obliterate the monsters for good, so they decided to do so. As Tahamaru began to leave, he told his men that he would protect his village, even from his own brother. In the meantime, Hyakimaru eventually made his way outside, and discovered a bunch of demons before him. Just then, one beast began charging at him, but he slayed the monster and destroyed the rest of them in a moment. At the sight of this, Kyujai thought he may have raised a monster, and wondered why he rescued him in the first place. Before long, Hyakimaru had slain all the demons, and immediately stabbed the evil core, causing it to dispel, and all the monster seeds began to vanish. By the following day, as Hyakimaru was ready to leave, he asked to know Kyujai's name, but he told him that he didn't deserve a name, as he thought his life was tainted with murder, so Hyakimaru began to leave. At the same time at Daigo's village, Tahamaru prepared an army, ready to hunt down Hyakimaru. On the other hand, Hyakimaru managed to acquire a boat and began sailing towards the island, hoping to find Dororo. On the island, Itachi and his men continued searching for the treasure, but the men soon began to wonder if they were even heading in the right direction. At the same time on the beach, the living shark began devouring the dead one, and upgraded into a monster shark. When it was done, it began crawling towards Dororo, looking to make her its snack. However, as it tried to devour her, it bit into the tree and ripped it off as she managed to escape, before getting knocked aside. With the beast